Part 1. The Unspoken Cost of Over-Explaining. Let me ask you something, and be honest. Not with me. With yourself. How many times have you caught your mouth running, spilling out reasons, justifications, context, and excuses to someone who didn't even ask? How many times have you left a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered it? Feeling like you gave something away that you can never retrieve? Feeling like you handed a stranger a map to your insecurities and watched them walk all over it? That feeling isn't shyness. That feeling isn't politeness. That feeling is a quiet, creeping surrender of your authority. And it is happening every single day. You have been conditioned to believe that explaining yourself is a virtue. That if you give enough context, lay out enough evidence, make your reasoning airtight enough, people will finally understand you. They will respect you. They will agree with you. They will see that you are right, that you are good, that you have nothing to hide. But here is the brutal truth the world will never tell you. Explaining yourself, unsolicited, is not communication. It is submission. It is the act of positioning another person as your judge, your jury, and your executioner, and then handing them the gavel yourself. When you volunteer your reasoning without being asked, you are telegraphing one thing. I am not sure I have the right to exist here without your approval. Think about the last time you were in a meeting. Someone asked a simple question. Why did you take that approach? Or worse, no one asked anything. But you felt the silence pressing on you. You felt the weight of their eyes. And you started talking. You explained the data, the timeline, the obstacles, the alternative paths. Why you chose this one. You explained. Now be honest. Did they look more convinced, or did they look like they just watched a drowning man gasp for air? Because that is what over-explaining looks like. Desperation. Anxiety wearing a suit and pretending to be competence. And the moment you start justifying, the person across from you stops listening to your words and starts reading your fear. They stop evaluating your logic and start evaluating your status. And the verdict is always the same. This person is not sure of themselves. This is not a moral failure. It is a psychological law. The human brain is a status detection machine, wired from millions of years of tribal existence to instantly assess who is the leader and who is the follower. In the wild, the leader did not explain his decision to hunt left instead of right. He pointed, and the tribe moved. The follower justified his hesitation, explained his fear, and begged for reassurance. You carry that same wiring. Every time you over-explain, you trigger that ancient part of the other person's brain that files you under follower. Let me make this worse, because I want you to truly feel the cost. Every word of explanation you offer without being asked siphons energy from your presence. It depletes your mystery. It dissolves your authority. It tells the person you are speaking to that their opinion matters more to you than your own certainty. And the most tragic part is, they didn't even want that power. You gave it to them. You left it on the table like a tip for a waiter you were terrified of disappointing. Think about the people you truly respect. The ones whose voice makes you lean in. The person in your life who, when they speak, people stop talking. Do they explain themselves? Do they unravel their reasoning like a ball of yarn for anyone who looks at them sideways? No. They say what they mean. They mean what they say. And they stop talking. There is a reason the most powerful people in history are recorded as men and women of few words. Abraham Lincoln, who held a nation together through its bloodiest conflict, was famous for his silence. He would listen. He would absorb. When he spoke, his sentences were sharp, short, and finished. He did not explain why he was right. He simply acted. And the nation followed. Steve Jobs never groveled for understanding. He told you what the product was, what it did. And if you didn't get it, that was your problem, not his. He did not explain. He presented. There is a difference, and it is the difference between commanding respect and begging for it. Now, let me be clear. I am not telling you to become a robot. I am not telling you to be rude. I am not telling you to refuse clarity when clarity is genuinely requested by someone who has earned the right to ask. There is a canyon-wide difference between clarifying and explaining. Clarifying is a generous act you offer to a peer when they are genuinely seeking understanding to collaborate with you. Explaining is a panicked act you offer to anyone who looks at you funny, because you are terrified of being misunderstood. Clarifying is power. Explaining is panic. And right now, you are panicking far too often. So here is the one rule I want you to walk away with. Tattoo it on the inside of your skull. Repeat it every morning until it becomes your reflex. State your position once. Then stop. No follow-up. No hedging. No, if that makes sense at the end. No, does that seem reasonable to you? No, I hope I explained that well. Just your truth. Your position. Your decision. And silence. You will feel the urge to break that silence. You will feel your mouth itching to fill the void. You will feel your anxiety clawing at your chest, screaming at you to offer just one more sentence to make sure they get it. That urge is the ghost of your old self. The self that begged for approval. The self that treated every conversation as a test. Kill that ghost. When you say what you mean and mean what you say, you are not being a jerk. You are being an adult. You are communicating that your words have weight, that you do not waste them, and that you respect yourself enough to trust your own reasoning without needing a witness to validate it. This is the unspoken cost of over-explaining, the cost of your authority, the cost of your peace, the cost of the respect you have been giving away for free to people who never earned it. Starting today, you stop paying that price. You owe no one your reasoning. You owe them your results. Your silence is your sovereignty. Protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Part 2. The Psychology of Self-Justification. Why we do it. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Not the kind of uncomfortable that makes you laugh nervously. The kind that makes you want to close this audio and do something else. The kind that lands in your chest and stays there. Why do you do it? Why do you explain yourself when no one asked? Why does your mouth open and spill out reasons, context, and justifications like a dam that has finally burst, even when you know, somewhere deep down, that you should just stop talking? The answer is not that you are weak. The answer is not that you are insecure. The answer is not that you are broken. The answer is far more unsettling than that. The answer is that you were trained to do this. Conditioned. Programmed. And the training happened so early, so quietly, so relentlessly, that you do not even remember it happening. Self-justification is not a personality trait. It is a trauma response. I want you to think back, way back, to the dinner table, to the classroom, to the moments when you were a child and someone in authority looked at you with that particular expression. The expression that said, "Explain yourself." Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was an older sibling who delighted in watching you squirm. But someone, somewhere, taught you that your existence required a defense. You learned that your actions were not enough. Your choices were not enough. You, just as you were not enough. You needed to justify. You needed to prove. You needed to build a case for your own right to exist in the space you occupied. And if you could not build that case, if your explanation was not sufficient, if your reasoning was not airtight, you would face the consequence. Disappointment. Withdrawal of love. Punishment. Rejection. So you learned to talk. You learned to explain. You learned to defend yourself before the attack even came. You became a master of preemptive justification. And that child, that terrified child who just wanted to be seen and accepted, is still inside you. And when the pressure rises, when you feel the weight of another person's gaze, that child takes over your mouth. And you explain, and explain, and explain. This is the psychology of self-justification. It is survival instinct wearing the mask of communication. Let me break this down for you in terms you can hold on to. There are 3 psychological drivers behind your urge to explain. Understanding them is the first step to killing them. The first is the need for safety. When you were young, you learned that a good explanation could shield you from punishment. You could talk your way out of trouble. You could make the angry adult pause, reconsider, maybe even soften. Your words became armor. And now, every time you feel even a hint of disapproval, you reach for that armor. You start explaining because your nervous system believes you are under attack. It believes that if you just say the right thing, you will be safe. But you are not a child anymore. No one is going to send you to your room. No one is going to withdraw their love. You are safe. But your nervous system does not know that. The second is the need for validation. This is the one that stings the most. Somewhere along the way, you came to believe that being understood was the same as being loved. That if someone could see your reasoning, they would see you. They would accept you. They would approve of you. So you lay out your entire internal landscape for anyone who glances in your direction. You hand them a detailed map of your mind, hoping that they will find it beautiful or at least acceptable. But here is the brutal truth. Understanding does not equal approval. Someone can understand you completely and still reject you. Someone can understand you completely and still disagree with you. Someone can understand you completely and still not care. The validation you are seeking through explanation is an illusion. It is a drug that you keep chasing, and the dose is never quite enough. The third is the fear of being misunderstood. This is the one that keeps you up at night. The fear that someone out there has the wrong idea about you. That they think you are selfish, lazy, ignorant, or malicious. That they are judging you unfairly. And you cannot stand it. You cannot stand the thought of someone holding an inaccurate version of you in their head. So you correct. You clarify. You explain. You chase the ghost of their misunderstanding, believing that if you can just reach it, you can finally rest. But you will never reach it. Because their misunderstanding is not your problem. It is theirs. And the more you try to correct it, the more power you give it. You have been running this race your entire life. And you are exhausted. Here is what I need you to understand. The urge to explain is not a moral failing. It is a learned behavior. And what has been learned can be unlearned. What has been programmed can be reprogrammed. But you cannot unlearn something you do not see. You cannot reprogram something you have never examined. So start examining. Next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Ask yourself 3 questions. Am I unsafe right now? Am I seeking approval or offering information? Am I responsible for fixing their misunderstanding? Then breathe. And choose silence. Because the truth is, you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to defend. You have nothing to justify. You are not on trial. You are not in trouble. You are simply a person, making choices, living a life, and you owe no one the blueprint to your soul. Your reasons are yours. Your context is yours. Your story is yours. And you are allowed to keep it. Starting today, you stop performing your justification. You start existing without apology. Part 3. Epictetus and the Stoic Art of Silence. You have been taught that silence is emptiness. That silence is awkward. That silence is something to be filled, like a void that must be plugged with words before it swallows you whole. You have been taught that if you are not talking, you are not contributing. If you are not explaining, you are not connecting. If you are not justifying, You are not being seen. The ancient Stoics looked at silence very differently. They looked at silence and saw power. They looked at silence and saw sovereignty. They looked at silence and saw the ultimate expression of self-mastery. And one man in particular, a former slave named Epictetus, understood the art of silence so deeply that his teachings have survived 2,000 years, waiting for you to find them. Epictetus said something that should stop you in your tracks. He said, if you want to improve, be content to appear foolish and stupid in the eyes of others. Read that again. Be content to appear foolish and stupid in the eyes of others. This is not a man who was afraid of being misunderstood. This is not a man who spent sleepless nights worrying about what people thought of him. This is not a man who over-explained his choices to anyone who would listen. This is a man who understood that the need to appear wise, to appear justified, to appear approved, was the very thing keeping him small. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no status. He had no reputation. He had no reason to believe that anyone would ever take him seriously. And yet, he became one of the most influential philosophers in history. How? By understanding that his internal world was his own, that the approval of others was not his concern, that his reasoning needed no external validation. He understood that silence was not weakness, it was strength. Here is what the Stoics knew that you have forgotten. Your worth is not determined by how well you are understood. Your worth is determined by how well you live in alignment with your own principles. And living in alignment with your own principles requires exactly zero explanation to anyone. Think about that. Your principles are yours. Your values are yours. Your choices are yours. They do not need to be understood by anyone else to be valid. They do not need to be approved by anyone else to be right. They do not need to be explained to anyone else to be real. The Stoics practiced something called the dichotomy of control. It is a simple but devastating concept. There are things you can control, and there are things you cannot control. That is the dichotomy. What is within your control? Your judgments, your choices, your actions, your words. What is outside your control? What other people think of you. What other people say about you. Whether other people understand you. Whether other people approve of you. Now, here is where you have been trapped. Every time you explain yourself, you are trying to control something outside your control. You are trying to force understanding. You are trying to force approval. You are trying to force a specific reaction in another person's mind. But you cannot control their mind. You cannot control their interpretation. You cannot control their judgment. All you can control is whether you speak, and when you do, what you say. So why are you exhausting yourself trying to control the uncontrollable? The Stoics understood that the need to explain was a form of attachment to external approval. They understood that when you explain yourself, you are signaling that your internal state depends on their external reaction. You are saying, I need you to get this. I need you to agree with this. I need you to see me the way I see myself. And that need, that desperate clinging to their perception, is the opposite of freedom. Freedom, to a Stoic, meant being unshakable. It meant being so grounded in your own reason, so secure in your own judgment, that the opinions of others simply did not register. It meant being willing to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to be judged, to be rejected, and to be completely, utterly unaffected by any of it. This is not arrogance. This is not indifference. This is not cruelty. This is the deepest form of self-respect. It is the recognition that your inner world is a sanctuary, and you are the only person who gets to decide what lives there. Now, let me be practical with you. Because I know you are thinking, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do it? Here is where we start. When you feel the urge to explain, ask yourself one question. Whose approval am I seeking? Be honest. There is always a name attached to the urge. Sometimes it is a specific person. Sometimes it is a vague audience. Sometimes it is the ghost of someone from your past. But there is always a name. Find that name. And then ask yourself a second question. Have they earned the right to my reasoning? Have they proven themselves worthy of my internal world? Have they earned a seat at the table of my self-reflection? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Most of the time, you are offering your soul to someone who has not even earned your time. Your silence is not emptiness. It is a boundary. It is a gate. It is a shield that protects the most valuable thing you own, your internal authority. When you stop explaining, you stop performing. When you stop performing, you start existing. And when you start existing, you become real. Epictetus knew this. The Stoics knew this. And now so do you. Your silence is your sovereignty. Protect it. Part 4. The Law of Least Effort. Social Dynamics and the Power of Silence. There is a law that governs every human interaction you will ever have. You have never been taught this law. No one ever sits you down and explains it to you. But you have felt its effects your entire life. You have experienced it in meetings, in relationships, in family gatherings, in every single conversation where you felt, instinctively, that you had somehow lost ground. It is called the law of least effort, and it is the hidden architecture of all social dynamics. Here is the law in its simplest form. In any interaction, the person who speaks less holds more power. The person who explains less commands more respect. The person who feels the least need to justify themselves is the person who is perceived as having the highest status. This is not an opinion. This is not a strategy. This is not a manipulation technique that you can choose to use or ignore. This is a psychological reality. It is how the human brain, wired over millions of years of tribal existence, automatically assesses status. Think about it. In the wild, the leader of the tribe did not explain himself. He did not say, "I think we should hunt in the Eastern Valley because the game has been plentiful there in recent weeks and the weather patterns suggest they will be grazing near the river." He did not provide a detailed justification. He pointed, and the tribe moved. The leader spoke in statements. The follower spoke in questions and justifications. You carry that same wiring in your brain, and every person you interact with carries it in theirs. When you explain, when you justify, when you offer up your reasoning before it is requested, you are not communicating. You are signaling. You are signaling that you are lower in the hierarchy than the person you are speaking to. You are signaling that you need their approval. You are signaling that you are uncertain of your own position. And here is the brutal part. They may not even know they are receiving that signal. But their brain receives it anyway, and it files you away accordingly. Robert Greene, the author of the 48 Laws of Power, put it this way: say less than necessary. That is the third law in his book. And he did not pull it out of thin air. He studied history. He studied the men and women who rose to power and held it. He studied the ones who commanded armies, built empires, and shaped civilizations. And he found that almost all of them shared one trait. They were economical with their words. They spoke only when they had something worth saying, and when they spoke, they stopped. Now, let me show you how this plays out in your daily life. You are in a meeting. You present an idea. Someone challenges it. Not aggressively, just a question. Why did you choose that approach? In that moment, you have a choice. You can answer the question directly and stop. Or you can start explaining. You can give the backstory, the research, the alternatives you considered, the reasons you rejected them. You can justify your decision in exhaustive detail, hoping that your thoroughness will convince them. But here is the truth. That thoroughness does not convince them. It does the opposite. It tells them that you are unsure. It tells them that you have been waiting for someone to challenge you, because you have been secretly doubting yourself all along. It tells them that your confidence is conditional, dependent on their approval. The person who commands respect answers the question and stops. I chose that approach because it aligns with our timeline. Period. End of sentence. Let the silence stretch. Let them sit with your answer. If they want more, they will ask. And if they ask, you give another concise answer. But you do not volunteer. You do not preemptively justify. You do not hand them your entire reasoning process on a silver platter. Why? Because your reasoning process is yours. It is private. It is the work you did before you arrived at your decision, and it does not need to be shared with anyone who has not earned the right to receive it. Let me give you another example. You are at a family dinner. You mention that you are changing careers. A relative raises an eyebrow. Oh, really? Why? They are not truly curious. They are not genuinely interested in your thought process. They are performing. They are probing. They are seeing if they can make you squirm. In that moment, you have a choice. You can give them the full explanation. The dissatisfaction with your current role. The passion you have for the new field. The research you have done. The financial planning. The backup plans. You can lay out your entire life strategy for a relative who will forget it by dessert. Or you can say something simple. It felt like the right move. And stop. That is the law of least effort in action. You do not explain your life decisions to people who have not earned the right to understand them. You do not justify your choices to people who have no stake in your journey. You simply state your truth and let it stand. Now, let me be clear about something. This is not about being rude. It is about being precise. It is about recognizing that your energy is finite, your reasoning is valuable, and not everyone deserves access to it. The person who respects your time, your boundaries, and your privacy will not demand a full accounting of your choices. The person who demands a full accounting is, consciously or unconsciously, trying to diminish you. So here is your practice. For the next week, I want you to experiment. When someone asks you a question about a decision you have made, answer it in one sentence. Just one. And then stop. Let the silence hang. Let them sit with your answer. And if they press for more, give them another single sentence. But never, ever, do you volunteer the full explanation without being asked. Notice how people respond. Notice the shift in their posture, their tone, their energy. Notice how they start treating you with a little more care, a little more deference, a little more respect. Because you are no longer performing. You are existing. And existing, without justification, is the most powerful thing you can do. Your silence is your power. Protect it. Part 5. The workplace. Stop explaining your decisions. The workplace is where the cost of over-explaining is highest. It is where the stakes are real. It is where your livelihood, your reputation, and your future are on the line every single day. And it is where you are most likely to sabotage yourself without even realizing you are doing it. Let me paint you a picture. You are in a meeting. You present a decision you have made. A colleague, a manager, or a client asks a simple question. Why did you go that route? In that moment, you feel the pressure. You feel the eyes on you. You feel the weight of their expectation. And you start talking. You explain the data, the timeline, the obstacles, the alternatives you considered, the reasons you rejected them, the reasoning behind your reasoning. You lay out your entire internal process like a crime scene, hoping they will find you innocent. And when you finish, they nod. They say, okay. But something has shifted. Something subtle, almost imperceptible. The energy in the room has changed. The dynamic has changed. And you are now, in their minds, just a little bit smaller than you were before you opened your mouth. Here is the brutal truth about the workplace. Your explanations are not read as thoroughness. They are read as insecurity. Your justifications are not read as professionalism. They are read as defensiveness. Your detailed breakdowns are not read as competence. They are read as a lack of confidence. I know this is hard to hear. I know you have been told your entire career that being thorough is being professional, that explaining your reasoning is being transparent, that justifying your decisions is being accountable. But there is a difference between accountability and over-explanation. There is a difference between transparency and self-justification. And the difference is the difference between being respected and being managed. Let me explain. Accountability means stating your decision and owning the outcome. It means saying, I made this call. Here is the result. I take responsibility. It is clean. It is strong. It is final. Over-explanation means providing a full accounting of your internal process in the hope that if people understand your reasoning, they will not hold you responsible if things go wrong. It is muddy. It is weak. It is an invitation for them to pick apart your logic, find flaws in your thinking, and use your own words against you. When you over-explain at work, you are doing something far more dangerous than you realize. You are inviting debate. You are inviting criticism. You are inviting them to second-guess you. And once they start second-guessing, your authority evaporates. Think about the most respected person in your organization. The one whose voice makes people lean in. The one whose decisions are rarely questioned. Do they explain themselves in exhaustive detail? Do they lay out their entire reasoning process every time they make a call? Or do they state their position, provide the essential context, and move on? They move on. They move on because they understand that their authority comes from their certainty, not from their thoroughness. They understand that people follow confidence, not footnotes. Now, let me give you a tool. The next time you are in a meeting and someone asks you to explain your decision, I want you to try something. I want you to answer in 2 sentences or less. Just 2. And then I want you to stop. Let the silence stretch. Let them sit with your answer. And if they ask for more, give them 1 more sentence. But do not volunteer a full accounting. Do not hand them your reasoning process like a gift. They have not earned it. Why does this work? Because it forces them to respect your judgment. It forces them to trust you. It forces them to accept that you are the expert, the decision-maker, the authority. And when they do, they stop questioning. They stop probing. They stop treating you like someone who needs to be supervised. Let me give you another example. The email chain. You have all been there. You send a decision. Someone asks a question. You answer. They ask another. You answer. They ask for clarification. You provide it. And suddenly, you are in a spiral of explanation, defending something that never needed defending in the first place. You are in the weeds. You are in the mud. You are drowning. Here is the rule for email. State your decision. State your reasoning in 1 clear sentence. And then state that the decision is final. This is the approach we are taking. It aligns with our timeline. I am confident in this direction. And then stop. Do not engage in follow-up questions that attempt to reopen the decision. Do not justify. Do not defend. Simply state, I have already addressed this in my previous email. The decision stands. You will feel rude. You will feel abrupt. You will feel like you are being dismissive. But you are not. You are being clear. You are being professional. You are being the leader that people trust to make decisions and stand by them. This is what separates the executives from the rest. The executives do not explain. They decide. They communicate. They move on. And the organization moves with them. Start moving. Part 6. Relationships, the erosion of mystery. There is a quiet death that happens in relationships. It does not announce itself. There is no fight, no breakup, no dramatic moment of confrontation. It is slower than that. More insidious. It is the death of mystery. And you are the one committing the murder every single time you open your mouth to explain yourself when no explanation was required. Let me tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. Attraction, in all its forms, romantic, platonic, even professional, is sustained by mystery. Not secrets, not deception. Mystery. The space between what you reveal and what you keep. The gap between what you show and what you hold. That gap is where curiosity lives. That gap is where respect lives. That gap is where desire lives. And every time you over-explain, you close that gap. You fill that space with words. And you kill the very thing that made you compelling. Think about the early days of any relationship you have ever had. You were curious. You were intrigued. You were drawn to the parts of the other person that you could not quite see. The parts they did not lay out on the table. The parts they kept for themselves. That mystery pulled you in. It made you want to know more. It made you lean in. It made you invest. Now think about how that changes over time. How the explaining creeps in. How you start justifying your moods, your silences, your choices, your needs. You start explaining why you are tired. Why you need space. Why you are not in the mood. Why you said what you said. Why you did what you did. You start handing over the blueprint to your internal world like you are afraid they might leave if they do not understand you completely. But here is the truth that no one tells you. Complete understanding is not the foundation of lasting connection. Respect is. And respect requires space. It requires the other person to wonder. It requires them to reach. It requires them to lean in. And when you explain everything, you take away their reason to lean. You take away their reason to reach. You take away their reason to invest. Let me get specific. You are in a relationship. You are feeling distant. Your partner asks, "What's wrong?" You have a choice. You can say, "Nothing, just tired," and let it be. Or you can launch into a full accounting of your emotional state. The stress at work. The exhaustion. The anxiety about the future. The complicated feelings about a conversation you had 3 days ago. You unload. You justify. You explain. And what happens? Your partner listens. They nod. They try to help. But something has shifted. You have made them the caretaker of your emotional state. You have burdened them with your internal chaos. You have closed the gap of mystery and replaced it with a flood of information that they did not ask for and cannot process. The stronger choice, the more respectful choice, the more attractive choice, is to say, "Nothing, just tired," and leave it there. Not because you are hiding. Not because you are being dishonest. But because you are protecting the space between you. You are protecting their ability to wonder. You are protecting your own autonomy. You are saying, "My internal world is mine. I will share it when I am ready, not when you demand it." Here is another example. You are in an argument. You feel the urge to explain your side. You want them to understand. You want them to see it your way. So you lay out your reasoning. The facts. The timeline. The context. The emotions. You explain, explain, explain. And they do not get it. They still disagree. They still do not see it your way. And you are left feeling more frustrated than before. Why? Because you were never trying to communicate. You were trying to control. You were trying to force them to see the world the way you see it. And that is not something you can do with words. The only way to command respect in a relationship is to stop performing your justification, to stop explaining yourself into submission, to stop handing over your internal world as if it is a gift they are entitled to receive. When you stop explaining, something changes. You become more present. You become more grounded. You become more attractive. Because you are no longer a person who needs to be understood to feel okay. You are a person who is okay whether they understand you or not. And that is magnetic. This is not about being cold. This is not about being withholding. This is about understanding that your inner world is yours. That you are allowed to hold parts of yourself close. That you are allowed to say, "I need some time," without explaining why. That you are allowed to be in a mood without justifying it. That you are allowed to make a decision without defending it. The people who love you do not need to understand you completely. They need to respect you completely. And respect is built on the space between what you reveal and what you keep. Stop filling that space with explanations. Let them wonder. Part 7. Boundaries. The no without justification. There is a word that terrifies you. You have been running from it your entire life. You have been building elaborate explanations to avoid saying it. You have been offering long, detailed justifications to soften its impact. You have been performing mental gymnastics to make it more palatable, more acceptable, more comfortable for the person on the receiving end. The word is no, and you have forgotten that it is a complete sentence. Let me tell you something that will change everything. No does not require a reason. No does not require context. No does not require a backstory. No does not require an apology. No requires absolutely nothing except your willingness to say it and let it stand. But you have been conditioned to believe otherwise. You have been conditioned to believe that if you say no, you must immediately follow it with an explanation. You must justify your refusal. You must make the other person understand why you are saying no, so they do not feel rejected, so they do not think poorly of you, so they do not withdraw their approval or their affection. This conditioning has made you a prisoner to the expectations of others, a prisoner to the need to be liked, a prisoner to the fear of disappointing anyone who asks anything of you. And the prison is built entirely of your own words. Every justification, every explanation, every careful, measured reason you offer when you simply could have said no. Here is the truth. When you say no and add a reason, you are not softening the no. You are inviting debate. You are saying, "Here is my reasoning. Feel free to dismantle it." And people will. They will question your reason. They will challenge your logic. They will offer solutions to your stated problem. They will try to find a way around your justification. Because you gave them the opening. You handed them the keys to your boundary and said, "If you can pick this lock, I will let you in." Stop handing them the keys. No is a complete sentence. It does not need a wingman. It does not need a defense attorney. It does not need a press release. It stands alone. It is a wall. And walls do not explain why they are walls. They simply are. Think about the last time someone asked you for something you did not want to give. Maybe it was your time, your energy, your money, your attention. You knew in your gut that the answer was no. But you did not say no. You said maybe. You said, "I will think about it." You said, "Let me get back to you." And then you spent hours, days, weeks, trying to figure out how to say no in a way that would not upset them. You crafted the perfect explanation. You rehearsed it in your head. You worried about their reaction. You lost sleep over their potential disappointment. And all of that suffering was completely unnecessary. All of that suffering was self-inflicted, because you forgot that you could have simply said no, without explanation, without justification, without apology. I want you to try something. Just once. Someone asks you for something, a request you do not want to fulfill. You feel the urge to explain. You feel the words building in your throat, the reasons, the context, the careful, measured justification. And instead of letting them out, you say a single word, no. And then you stop. No follow-up, no hedge, no softening, just no. And silence. What happens next? The other person is stunned. They are not used to this. They are used to you explaining. They are used to you justifying. They are used to you leaving the door open for negotiation. But this time, you did not leave it open. You closed it. And they have to deal with that. Will they be uncomfortable? Yes. Will they be surprised? Absolutely. Will they respect you more? Almost certainly. Because you have just demonstrated something that most people never demonstrate. You have demonstrated that your boundaries are real. That your no means no. That you are not available to be negotiated with. And that is powerful. Now, let me be clear about something. This is not about being cruel. This is not about being dismissive. This is about being honest. It is about understanding that your time, your energy, your resources, your attention, all of it is finite. And you are allowed to protect it. You are allowed to say no without providing a dossier on why you are saying no. You are allowed to have boundaries that are absolute, conditional, situational, or just yours. The next time you are asked for something you do not want to give, I want you to remember this. Your no is not a negotiation. Your no is not a discussion. Your no is not an invitation for them to understand you better. Your no is a boundary. And boundaries do not explain themselves. They simply exist. So stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop performing your refusal like it is a show you have to sell. Say no. And let that be enough. Because it is. Part 8. The Power of the Pause. There is a weapon you have never learned to use. It is always available. It costs nothing. It requires no training. And yet, you avoid it like it is a disease. You fill it with noise. You smother it with words. You run from it as if it is the enemy. But it is not the enemy. It is your greatest ally. I am talking about the pause. The silence between words. The space between sentences. The moment when you stop talking and simply let the air hang. Most people cannot tolerate the pause. They feel it as pressure. They feel it as judgment. They feel it as an accusation. They feel it as a void that must be filled immediately, desperately, with anything, just so the silence does not swallow them whole. And in that panic they explain. They justify. They ramble. They hand over their power in a desperate attempt to make the silence go away. But here is what they do not understand. The pause is not a void. It is a throne. And the person who can sit in it comfortably, without flinching, without rushing to fill it, is the person who commands the room. Let me explain how this works. When you are in a conversation and you finish speaking, the other person is processing. They are considering your words. They are formulating their response. In that moment, there is a natural gap. That gap is the pause. And what you do with that gap determines everything. If you fill the gap with more words, you are telling the other person that you do not trust your own statement. You are telling them that your first attempt was not enough. You are telling them that you need to revise, expand, and justify what you just said. You are telling them that you are uncomfortable with the silence, and that discomfort is a weakness they can exploit. If, on the other hand, you let the gap sit, You are telling them something entirely different. You are telling them that you are confident in what you just said. You are telling them that you do not need to revise. You are telling them that you are comfortable with your own presence, with your own words, with your own silence. You are telling them that you are not afraid of the space between words. And that confidence is magnetic. The pause has another power. It is a tool of control. When you pause, you are controlling the rhythm of the conversation. You are deciding when to speak and when to stop. You are not reacting to their pace. You are setting your own. And the person who sets the pace is the person who holds the power. Think about the most compelling speakers you have ever heard. Think about the ones who make you lean in. Think about the ones who hold your attention without shouting, without rushing, without overwhelming you with information. What do they have in common? They pause. They let their words land. They give you time to process. They give you time to feel. They give you time to lean in. Now think about the people who make you anxious. The ones who talk too fast. The ones who never stop. The ones who fill every silence with nervous chatter. How do they make you feel? Exhausted, overwhelmed, unsettled, because they are not using the pause. They are running from it. And their running makes you want to run too. Here is where you need to practice. The next time you are in a conversation, I want you to try something. When you finish a sentence, stop. Do not add another word. Do not explain. Do not clarify. Just stop and count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. And then, if the other person has not spoken, you may continue. But here is the secret. Most of the time, they will speak before you reach 3. They will fill the silence. They will rush to respond. They will give you something. And you have done nothing except sit comfortably in your own stillness. This is the power of the pause. It makes the other person work. It makes them reach. It makes them invest. And it makes you look like someone who is completely at ease with who they are and what they have to say. The pause also gives you something invaluable. Time. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to decide what you actually want to say instead of reacting on impulse. When you pause, you are not just controlling the conversation. You are controlling yourself. You are giving your brain the space to choose your words instead of just releasing them in a panic. Most of the explanations you have regretted were spoken in the space that should have been a pause. Most of the justifications you have wished you could take back were blurted out because you could not tolerate the silence. Most of the power you have handed away was offered in the gap between sentences that you refused to let exist. Start using the pause. Start sitting in the silence. Start letting your words land before you deliver the next salvo. You will feel uncomfortable at first. You will feel like you are being rude. You will feel like you are holding up the conversation. But you are not. You are becoming the person who speaks with authority. The person whose words have weight. The person who does not need to explain because they have already said what they meant. Your pause is your power. Use it. Part 9. How manipulators exploit your over-explaining. There are people in this world who feed on your need to explain. They are not obvious. They do not wear signs. They do not announce themselves as predators. They come across as curious, interested, even concerned. They ask questions. They lean in. They seem to want to understand you. And you, desperate to be understood, open your mouth and hand them everything they need to destroy you. Let me be blunt. Manipulators, narcissists, and toxic people do not want to understand you. They want to control you. And the fastest way to control someone is to make them explain themselves. Because when you explain, you reveal. When you justify, you expose. When you defend, you hand over your vulnerabilities on a silver platter. and they will use every single one of them against you. This is the hidden trap of over-explaining. You think you are building bridges. You think you are creating connection. You think you are showing good faith. But to a manipulator, your explanations are not bridges. They are blueprints. They are maps to your insecurities. They are instruction manuals on exactly how to push your buttons. Let me show you how this works in practice. The manipulator asks you a question. A simple question. Why did you do that? It seems innocent. It seems like genuine curiosity. But it is not. It is a probe. They are testing your boundaries. They are seeing if you will scramble to justify yourself. They are seeing if you will offer up your reasoning without being asked. And when you do, they have you. Because now they know what matters to you. They know what you are afraid of. They know what you are insecure about. They know what you are trying to prove. And they will use that knowledge to keep you off balance, to keep you defensive, to keep you explaining yourself into exhaustion. This is the narcissistic playbook. It is called the explain that trap. The narcissist makes a statement designed to provoke you. You react. You feel the need to correct them. You feel the need to set the record straight. You feel the need to explain your side. So you do. You explain. You justify. You defend. And the narcissist sits back, watches you squirm, and says, I was just asking a question. Why are you so defensive? Now you are not just explaining. You are explaining why you are explaining. You are caught in a loop. A trap. A cycle of self-justification that you cannot escape. And the narcissist has done nothing except ask a few innocent questions and watch you unravel. This is how they work. They do not need to attack you directly. They do not need to insult you. They do not need to argue with you. They just need to make you explain yourself. Because they know that once you start explaining, you are no longer in control. They are. They are controlling the conversation, the dynamic, the energy, and you are just reacting, defending, justifying, and exhausting yourself. Let me give you another example. The gaslighter. The gaslighter says something that makes you question your own reality. That never happened. You are imagining things. You are too sensitive. And what do? You explain. You offer evidence. You provide context. You lay out the timeline. You try to prove that you are not crazy. You try to prove that your memory is accurate. You try to prove that your feelings are valid. But here is the thing. The gaslighter does not care about your evidence. They do not care about your timeline. They do not care about your proof. They care about making you explain. Because every time you explain, you are saying, I am not sure of myself. I need you to validate my reality. And that is exactly what they want. They want you to need them. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to keep coming back for their approval. The only way to win this game is to stop playing. The only way to win is to refuse to explain. The only way to win is to look them in the eye and say, I know what I know, and then stop. No evidence. No context. No justification. Just your truth, standing alone, without defense. Because the truth does not need to be defended. It only needs to be stated. When you state your truth and stop, you are telling the manipulator that you are not available for their games. You are telling them that your reality is not up for debate. You are telling them that their questions are not an invitation for you to perform. And that is the one thing they cannot handle. They cannot handle someone who refuses to explain. They cannot handle someone who is comfortable with their own truth. They cannot handle someone who is not desperate for their approval. So here is your practice. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself to someone who has a history of making you feel small, stop. Ask yourself one question. Is this person genuinely curious, or are they trying to make me defend myself? Be honest. You already know the answer. You have felt it in your gut 1,000 times. Trust that feeling. And when you recognize the trap, refuse to walk into it. State your truth. And stop. No explanation. No justification. No defense. Just your truth standing alone. Part 10. The 7-Day Blueprint to Rewire This Habit. You have made it this far. You have heard the truth. You have felt it land in your chest. You have recognized yourself in every chapter. The over-explaining, the justifying, the defending, the handing over of your power to people who never earned it. You see it now. You see the cost. You see the pattern. And you are ready to break it. But knowing is not enough. Understanding is not enough. Awareness is not enough. You have known things before and not changed. You have understood things before and stayed the same. Insight without action is just entertainment. And you are not here to be entertained. You are here to transform. So I am going to give you a blueprint. 7 days. 7 simple practices. 1 habit to break. 1 new reflex to build. This is not a suggestion. This is a prescription. Follow it, and you will rewire the way you show up in the world. Ignore it, and you will remain exactly where you are. Day 1. The Awareness Log. Today, you do nothing but observe. You do not change anything. You do not force anything. You simply watch. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, I want you to notice it. That is all. Just notice. Keep a running tally in your head or on your phone. Count the number of times you catch yourself offering a justification that was not requested. Count the number of times you volunteer your reasoning without being asked. Count the number of times you defend a decision that needed no defense. Do not judge yourself. Do not criticize yourself. Just observe. Today is about awareness, and awareness is the foundation of all change. Day 2. The 1-sentence rule. Today, you limit every answer to 1 sentence. 1. Just 1. When someone asks you a question, you respond with a single, complete sentence. And then you stop. No follow-up. No clarification. No expansion. No hedging. Just 1 sentence. If they want more, they will ask. And if they ask, you give them 1 more sentence. But you never volunteer more than 1 sentence at a time. This will feel unnatural. It will feel abrupt. You will feel like you are being rude. You are not. You are being precise. And precision is power. Day 3. The silent pause. Today you practice the pause. Before every response, you wait. You count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. Then you speak. And after you speak, you pause again. You let the silence sit. You do not rush to fill it. You do not add extra words to soften the impact. You let your words land and you let the silence do its work. This 1 practice alone will change how people perceive you. Because the person who can sit in silence is the person who is comfortable in their own skin. And that comfort is magnetic. Day 4. No without justification. Today you say no. At least once. To someone. To something. And you offer no explanation. Just no. No reason. No context. No backstory. No apology. Just the word. And you let it stand. This will feel terrifying. You will feel the urge to soften it, to explain it, to make it easier for the other person to accept. Resist that urge. Let your no be a wall. Let it be complete. Let it be enough. You are allowed to say no without justifying it. Today, you prove that to yourself. Day 5. The broken record. Today, you handle pushback. Someone challenges your decision. Someone questions your boundary. Someone presses you for more. And you respond with the same calm, simple statement. You repeat it. The exact same words. No variation. No escalation. No explanation. Just the same phrase, delivered with the same calm tone. You are not arguing. You are not defending. You are simply repeating. This is the broken record technique, and it is the most effective way to handle anyone who tries to pull you into a justification spiral. Today, you practice it. Day 6. Silent observation. Today, you observe others. You watch how people interact. You notice the ones who talk too much. You notice the ones who explain themselves constantly. You notice how they are perceived. You notice how much energy they give away. And you notice the ones who speak less. The ones who sit in silence. The ones who let their words land. You notice how they command the room without trying. Today, you learn from observation. You see the difference between the explainer and the authority, and you decide which one you want to be. Day 7. Full integration. Today, you combine everything. You observe. You pause. You speak in one-sentence answers. You say no without justification. You handle pushback with the broken record. You sit in silence. You let your words land. You do not explain. You do not justify. You do not defend. You simply exist in your truth. And at the end of the day, you reflect. You journal. You write down what you noticed. What was hard? What was easy? What shifted? You celebrate your wins. You forgive your slips. And you commit to continuing. This is the blueprint. 7 days. 7 practices. 1 transformation. You have the knowledge. You have the tools. You have the power. The only question that remains is this. Will you do the work? Your silence is your sovereignty. Protect it, because it is everything.